The Galactic Council chamber stretched impossibly high, its crystalline walls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that translated the emotions of a dozen different species. Ambassador Zexthera of the Vrillian Empire stood before the assembled delegates, her 6 arms gesturing gracefully as she spoke in the universal trade tongue. Honored beings, she began, her voice carrying the weight of desperation barely concealed beneath diplomatic protocol. We come before you today not as conquerors or traitors, but as supplicants seeking salvation for our dying world. The chamber hummed with translated whispers. The Vrillians were known throughout the galaxy as proud warriors, their crystalline exoskeletons and towering frames making them formidable opponents in any conflict. To see one of their ambassadors speaking of supplication was unprecedented. Admiral Kethvar of the Terran Federation sat in the human delegation section, his weathered face impassive as he listened to the translation flowing through his neural implant. Beside him, Dr. Sarah Chen, the Federation's chief xenobiologist, leaned forward with interest. The humans had only been members of the Galactic Council for 50 standard years, still considered newcomers by most of the ancient civilizations represented here. Vrillios Prime has been ravaged by the Crimson Plague, Zexthera continued, her normally iridescent shell now dulled with grief. 90% of our population has fallen. Our greatest scientists, our most powerful warriors, our wisest elders, all reduced to crystalline dust. We have tried everything within our power, consulted every known medical authority in the galaxy, but nothing can stop the plague's advance. The Altarian delegate, a being of pure energy contained within a sophisticated containment suit, spoke in harmonic frequencies. The Vrillian immune system is notoriously complex. What makes you believe any external intervention could succeed where your own science has failed? Zexthera's mandibles clicked in. What humans had learned was a sign of profound emotional distress among her species. Because we have discovered something. Ancient texts, predating even the First Galactic Empire, speak of a creature of legend. The Fenris albino, a wolf-like being of immense power, said to possess the ability to cleanse any poison, cure any disease, and restore life to the dying. A collective intake of breath rippled through the chamber. Even species that didn't breathe seemed to pause in recognition of the name. Dr. Chen's eyes widened. She had encountered references to this creature in her xenological studies, but had always dismissed them as mythology. The Fenris albino was supposedly a massive wolf-like entity with pure white fur and eyes like burning stars. According to legend, it was both a healer and a destroyer, capable of either saving or annihilating entire civilizations depending on how it was approached. The texts speak of a specific ritual, Zexthera continued. To summon the Fenris albino and gain its aid, one must offer it something precious beyond measure. Not gold or technology or even knowledge, but innocence itself. A young being, pure of heart and untainted by the cruelties of the galaxy. The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Several delegates stood to voice their outrage, but Zexthera raised all 6 arms for silence. We do not ask this lightly, she said, her voice breaking. But our children are dying. Our entire species faces extinction. We have located the Fenris albino's domain, a pocket dimension accessible through coordinates we've managed to decode from the ancient texts. We need only a sacrifice, Admiral Kethvar said quietly, his words somehow carrying across the vast chamber despite being spoken barely above a whisper. You're asking for a child to sacrifice to your mythological wolf. The Vrillian ambassador's shell darkened with shame. Not sacrifice offering. The texts are clear. The child would be given to the Fenris albino as a companion, to serve as its guide to understanding our need. In return, it would grant us the cure we seek. And what guarantee do you have that this creature won't simply devour the child? Dr. Chen asked, standing beside the admiral. Her voice carried the cold fury of a mother, though she had no children of her own. The thought of any species sacrificing a young life, even for survival, appalled her. The legends speak of the Fenris albino's nature, Zexthera replied. It is said to be drawn to purity and innocence, not to destroy it but to cherish it. The child would become its companion, living in paradise within its domain. The Yovan representative, a massive creature resembling an intelligent boulder, rumbled its displeasure. Even if such a being exists, what child would you propose for this offering? What parent would willingly give up their young for such an uncertain fate? Zexthera hesitated, her shell patterns shifting to colors that indicated deep uncertainty. We had hoped that perhaps one of the council races might volunteer. The chamber fell silent. The implication was clear: the Vrillians were asking another species to provide the sacrifice they were unwilling to make themselves. Admiral Kethvar stood slowly, his movements deliberate and controlled. At 73 years old, he had seen enough of war and politics to recognize desperate madness when he encountered it. Ambassador Zexthera, even assuming this creature exists and your ancient texts are accurate, you're asking us to condemn a child to an unknown fate based on mythology and desperation. The Terran Federation cannot and will not participate in such an action. Similar declarations came from around the chamber. The Altarians spoke of ethical protocols, the Yovans of moral foundations, the insectoid hive queens of protecting their larvae above all else. But, as the rejections mounted, something unexpected happened. A small voice cut through the diplomatic noise, speaking in clear, unaccented Standard Galactic. "I'll go." Every head, mandible, optical sensor, and attention organ in the chamber turned toward the source of the voice. In the human delegation section, a small figure stood up in one of the observer seats normally reserved for junior diplomates and students. The child appeared to be human, approximately 8 standard years old by galactic measurement standards. She had pale blonde hair that caught the chamber's bioluminescent light like spun gold, and eyes of such a startling blue that they seemed to glow with their own inner radiance. Her skin was porcelain pale, almost luminescent in the chamber's shifting lights. Admiral Kethvar's face went white. "Lily, sit down. Now." But the child, Lily, continued standing, her small hands gripping the railing in front of her. "I heard everything, Uncle Keth. The plague is killing all those people, and their children are dying. If there's a way to help them, I want to try." Dr. Chen moved quickly to the child's side, kneeling to bring herself to eye level. "Lily, sweetheart, you don't understand what you're saying. This is incredibly dangerous. You could be hurt, or worse." Lily's expression was solemn beyond her years. "I understand, Aunt Sarah. But, if I don't try, those children will definitely die. Maybe this wolf creature can help them. Maybe it can't. But, at least someone would be trying." The chamber had fallen completely silent, thousands of beings from across the galaxy listening to an 8-year-old human discuss the possibility of sacrificing herself for a species she had never even met. Zexthera's shell began to shift through rapidly changing color patterns: surprise, hope, fear, and something that might have been shame. "Child, you would do this? You would leave your family, your world, to help strangers?" Lily nodded gravely. "My parents died in the Proxima Colony disaster 3 years ago. Uncle Keth and Aunt Sarah take care of me now, but they're always busy with important work. Maybe this is important work I can do too." Admiral Kethvar's hands clenched into fists. "Absolutely not. Lily, you're not going anywhere. This whole discussion is insane." But, as he spoke, something strange began to happen in the chamber. The bioluminescent patterns on the walls started to pulse in synchronization, responding not to the emotions of the assembled delegates but to something else entirely. The patterns grew brighter, more intense, until they began to form recognizable shapes. Dr. Chen gasped as she recognized what she was seeing. The light patterns were forming the image of a massive wolf, its fur pure white and its eyes burning like stars. The creature in the lights turned its great head to look directly at Lily, and, for a moment that stretched into eternity, girl and image stared at each other across the vast chamber. Then, the image smiled a wolf smile that was both terrifying and oddly gentle, and faded away. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages, demanding explanations, calling for security, some even beginning to evacuate. But Lily stood calmly in the midst of it all, her blue eyes fixed on the space where the wolf's image had appeared. "It's real," she said softly, her words somehow carrying over the noise. "And it's waiting for me." Admiral Kethvar grabbed his niece's shoulders, spinning her to face him. "Lily, listen to me. That could have been anything: a holographic projection, some kind of psychic manipulation, 1,000 different technological tricks. You cannot trust something like that." But Dr. Chen was staring at her scanner readings, her face pale with shock. "Keth, there was no technology involved. No energy signatures, no holographic matrices, nothing. The lights responded to I don't know what. But it wasn't any kind of tech we understand." Zexthera approached slowly, her movements careful and reverent. "Young one, are you certain of your decision? The texts speak of great dangers in the Fenris albinos domain. pocket dimensions where time flows differently, where reality itself may be malleable. You might not be able to return. Lily looked up at the towering alien ambassador, showing no fear despite the fact that Zexthera stood nearly 3 meters tall and could have crushed the child without effort. Will it help save your people? The legends say it will, if properly approached. If the offering is deemed worthy. Then, I'll go, Lily said simply. When do we leave? The next several hours passed in a blur of emergency sessions, heated arguments, and frantic communication with Earth's government. The Terran Federation's leadership was split between those who refused to allow a child to be put at risk and those who recognized the unprecedented opportunity for humanity to prove itself capable of the kind of sacrifice that would earn them respect among the galactic community. In the end, it was Lily herself who made the decision moot. When Admiral Kethvar tried to have her confined to quarters for her own protection, she simply walked through the energy barrier as if it wasn't there. When Dr. Chen attempted to sedate her for transport back to Earth, the sedative had no effect. And, when security tried to physically restrain her, they found that the 8-year-old girl was immovable when she chose to be, as if she had become anchored to reality itself. There's something different about her, Dr. Chen reported to the emergency council session. I've run every scan I can think of, and she's registering as completely human. But she's displaying capabilities that shouldn't be possible. It's as if the decision to help the Vrillians has awakened something in her. The final decision came from Lily herself, delivered with the kind of calm authority that seemed impossible from someone so young. You can come with me if you want to help, but I'm going whether you approve or not. The wolf is waiting, and people are dying while we argue. 3 days later, a small fleet of ships assembled at the coordinates provided by the Vrillian texts. The Vrillian medical vessel Healing Light carried Ambassador Zexthera and a skeleton crew of volunteers. The Federation exploration ship New Horizon brought Admiral Kethvar, Dr. Chen, and a team of xenobiologists and physicists determined to document whatever they might find. And, at the center of it all, aboard a small diplomatic shuttle that had been hastily converted for deep space exploration, sat 8-year-old Lily Patterson, staring out at the stars with eyes that seemed to hold depths no child should possess. The coordinates led them to an area of space that appeared completely empty, no stars, no planets, no astronomical bodies of any kind. Just void stretching in all directions. But, as their ships approached the specified location, reality began to shift around them. Space itself seemed to fold, and, suddenly, there was something there, not a planet or a structure, but a tear in the fabric of spacetime itself. Through the tear, they could see a landscape that defied description, rolling hills of silver grass beneath a sky of deep purple, with 3 suns of different colors casting rainbow shadows across the ground. Dimensional gate confirmed, the New Horizon science officer reported. Energy readings are unprecedented. The spacetime distortion extends for approximately 50,000 kilometers in all directions. Whatever's on the other side exists in a completely separate dimensional matrix from our universe. Dr. Chen checked her instruments again, hardly believing what she was seeing. The atmosphere on the other side appears to be breathable for most council species, including humans. Gravity is approximately 0.8 standard. But, there are energy readings I can't identify, patterns that don't match any known physical laws. Lily pressed her face to the shuttle's viewport, watching the swirling energies of the dimensional gate. It's beautiful, she whispered. Can you see the colors? They're singing. The adults exchanged worried glances. None of them could hear anything unusual, and the energy patterns, while spectacular, weren't displaying any acoustic properties according to their instruments. As they prepared to enter the gate, Zexthera's voice came over the communication system from the Healing Light. Young Lily, are you certain you wish to proceed? Once we enter that realm, there may be no return. Lily's response was immediate and clear. I'm sure. Let's go save your people. The small fleet moved forward into the dimensional gate, and reality dissolved around them. For a moment that felt like both an instant and an eternity, they existed nowhere and everywhere at once. Then, with a sensation like breaking through the surface of a vast ocean, they emerged into the pocket dimension. The landscape spread before them was both alien and strangely familiar. The silver grass moved in waves despite the absence of wind, and the 3 suns cast a light that seemed to nourish rather than merely illuminate. In the distance, mountain peaks of what appeared to be crystal rose toward the purple sky. But it was the figure waiting for them on the hillside that drew every eye and stopped every heart. The Fenris albino was exactly as the legends described, yet somehow more real and terrible and beautiful than any story could convey. It stood nearly 4 meters at the shoulder, its fur so white it seemed to glow with inner radiance. Its eyes were indeed like burning stars, not metaphorically, but literally, containing swirling galaxies of light that spoke of intelligence older than civilizations. And it was looking directly at Lily with an expression that might have been curiosity, hunger, or recognition, possibly all three. The great wolf's voice, when it spoke, resonated not through the air but directly in their minds, carrying harmonics of power that made the very atoms of their bodies vibrate in sympathy. So, it said, they have sent me a child. How interesting. The Fenris albino descended the silver hillside with movements that seemed to bend reality around its massive frame. Each step caused the strange grass to luminescence brighter, and the very air shimmered with possibilities. The assembled crews from both ships watched in awe and terror as the legendary creature approached their landing site. Lily stepped forward from the shuttle, her small figure dwarfed by the cosmic wolf bearing down on them. Admiral Kethvar moved to intercede, but found himself frozen not by fear, but by some invisible force that held him as gently as a parent's hand. "Peace, warrior," the Fenris albino's voice echoed in their minds. "The child comes to me of her own will. I would speak with her." Dr. Chen's instruments were going haywire, registering energy signatures that shouldn't exist and temporal distortions that made her head spin. Yet through it all, Lily walked calmly toward the great wolf, showing no fear despite the creature's overwhelming presence. The wolf lowered its massive head until it was level with the 8-year-old girl. This close, they could see that its eyes truly did contain galaxies, swirling stars, and nebulae that spoke of depths beyond mortal comprehension. "You are not what they believe you to be," the Fenris albino said, its mental voice now directed solely at Lily. The others could hear the words, but they felt like observers to a private conversation. "They see a human child, innocent and pure. But I see something else entirely." Lily tilted her head, studying the cosmic wolf with the same intensity it focused on her. "What do you see?" "I see my sister." The words hit the assembled witnesses like a physical blow. Ambassador Zexthera's shell began cycling through colors so rapidly it became a blur of confusion and shock. The human crew members stared in disbelief, while the Vrillian medical team actually took several steps backward in instinctive terror. "You feel it too, don't you?" The Fenris albino continued, moving even closer to Lily. "The way reality bends around you when you truly need it to. The way others find themselves compelled to do what you ask, not through manipulation but through recognition of your inherent authority over the fundamental forces of existence." Lily was quiet for a long moment, her blue eyes reflecting the galaxies in the wolf's gaze. "I thought I was just lucky. When the pirates attacked the transport ship last year, the weapons just stopped working. When the navigation computer failed during the solar storm, I knew which way to go even though I'd never seen that star system before. When Aunt Sarah was sick with Rigelian fever, I touched her hand and she got better. Because you are what humans would call an avatar," the Fenris albino explained. "A fragment of something far greater than any single mortal form, wearing flesh to experience limitation and growth. As am I." Dr. Chen's scanner finally stabilized, and what it showed her made her question everything she thought she knew about physics. "The energy readings around Lily," she whispered to Admiral Kethvar. "They're identical to the readings from the wolf. Whatever that thing is, it's right, they're the same type of being." The great wolf settled onto the silver grass, its actions somehow making the entire pocket dimension feel more stable and real. "The mortals who summon me speak of plague and death, of children dying while their leaders seek mythological solutions to real problems. They offer you as tribute, believing your innocence will purchase their salvation." "Will it?" Lily asked simply. "That depends," the Fenris albino replied, "on what you truly want. I could cure their plague with a thought. I could restore their dead with a breath. I could reshape their entire reality to be free from suffering forever. But such gifts always come with a price, and that price is often higher than the recipients realize." Ambassador Zexthera found her voice, though it took visible effort. What price?" The cosmic wolf turned one star-filled eye toward the Vrillian delegation. "To cure a plague that has claimed 90% of your species, I would need to reach into the fundamental nature of Vrillian biology itself. I would need to rewrite the very essence of what makes you who you are. You would survive, but you would no longer be Vrillians. You would be something new, something crafted by my will rather than shaped by the natural evolution of your species. The silence that followed was profound. The Vrillian medical team huddled together, their shell patterns displaying the complex emotions of a people faced with survival at the cost of their essential selves. But, perhaps, the Fenris albino continued, there is another way. My sister here carries within her the potential for creation as well as destruction. She could learn to heal as I heal, to restore as I restore, but, in a way that preserves rather than transforms. Lily looked around at the assembled crews, seeing the hope and fear warring in their faces. You want me to stay here and learn? I want you to choose, the Great Wolf replied. You could return with them now, continue your life as a human child growing up in their fascinating but limited reality. Or you could remain here and learn to use the power you were born with, becoming something that could heal not just the Vrillian plague but countless other forms of suffering throughout the galaxy. Dr. Shen stepped forward, her maternal instincts overriding her scientific fascination. Lily, you don't have to sacrifice yourself for people you've never met. You're just a child. You deserve to have a normal life, to grow up and make choices when you're old enough to understand the consequences. Lily smiled at her adoptive aunt, and, for a moment she looked exactly like the 8-year-old human she appeared to be. Aunt Sarah, when was the last time you saw me act like a normal child? The question hit home. Even before this expedition, Lily had been unusual. She never played with toys, rarely showed interest in entertainment appropriate for her age, and often seemed to understand complex concepts before they were explained to her. She had always been more like a wise adult in a child's body than an actual child. The choice must be freely made, the Fenris albino said. And it cannot be unmade. If you choose to stay and learn, you will grow beyond your current form. You will become something capable of reshaping reality itself, but you will also lose the ability to live as mortals do. You will be eternal, powerful, and largely alone. Like you? Lily asked. Like me. Though perhaps, with a sister to share the burden, the loneliness would be lessened. Admiral Kefvar found his voice at last. And, if she chooses to return? Then, the Vrillians will have to find another solution to their plague. I will not intervene without a freely given offering of significance. The child's innocence and potential would have been sufficient payment, but only if she chose to give them. The weight of an entire species' survival settled onto the shoulders of an 8-year-old girl. The Vrillian delegation watched her with desperate hope, while the human crew waited with heartbreaking dread for her decision. Lily walked a few steps away from both groups, looking out over the impossible landscape of the pocket dimension. The silver grass waved beneath 3 alien suns, and, in the distance, crystal mountains sang with harmonies that seemed to speak of infinite possibilities. Can I ask something? She said finally. Of course. If I stay and learn to heal people, really heal them without changing who they are, could I help more than just the Vrillians? Could I help humans too, and all the other species in the galaxy? Eventually, yes. But the learning would take time, perhaps centuries by mortal standards, though time moves differently here. And the responsibility would be immense. You would become a force of healing in a galaxy that often prefers the familiarity of its wounds to the uncertainty of true recovery. Lily nodded slowly. And if I go back, I'll just be a human kid who sometimes makes impossible things happen. I might help a few people by accident, but I'd never really learn to control it or use it properly. That is correct. She looked back at the assembled crews, at Uncle Keth with his weathered face and protective love, at Aunt Sarah with her scientific mind and caring heart, at Ambassador Zexthera with her desperate hope for her dying people. All of them waiting for a child to make a choice that would reshape the galaxy. I want to help everyone, Lily said quietly. But I also want to make sure I do it right. If I make the wrong choice now, people die. If I choose correctly but don't learn properly, I might make things worse trying to help. Wisdom beyond your apparent years, the Fenris albino observed. Tell me, what do you propose? Lily turned back to face the great wolf, her blue eyes blazing with determination. I want to try a different kind of test first. You said you could cure the Vrillian plague by rewriting their biology. What if I tried to cure it by understanding it instead? If I can heal them without changing them, then I'll know I'm ready for the bigger responsibility. If I can't, then maybe I need to go back and grow up more before I make such a huge decision. The cosmic wolf's star-filled eyes widened slightly. You would attempt to heal an entire species as your first lesson in using your true power? I'd have the best teacher in the galaxy, Lily said with a smile. And, if it doesn't work, at least we'll know I tried. The Fenris albino was quiet for a long moment, and the assembled witnesses could feel the weight of cosmic intelligence considering possibilities beyond their comprehension. Very well, the great wolf said at last. But, understand this, attempting such healing without proper preparation could destroy you. Your mortal form might not survive the strain of channeling such power. Dr. Chen stepped forward again. Lily, please. Let us take you home. Let us find another way. But, Admiral Kethvar, studying his niece's face, recognized the expression she wore. He had seen it before, during the pirate attack she had mentioned, when she had somehow disabled an entire enemy ship's weapon systems through force of will alone. She's already decided, he said quietly. Haven't you, Lily? Lily nodded. I have to try, Uncle Keth. If I don't, and all those people die when I might have been able to save them, how could I live with that? And if I can save them, think about how many others I might be able to help in the future. Then, we begin now, the Fenris albino declared. But, first, you must understand what you are attempting. The Crimson Plague is not merely a disease, it is a manifestation of despair made viral. It feeds on hopelessness and spreads through the collective unconscious of the Vrillian people. To cure it, you must not only heal their bodies but restore their faith in the future. The great wolf stood and began walking toward a grove of trees that definitely hadn't been there moments before. The assembled crews followed, their instruments registering reality shifts with every step the cosmic beings took. The plague began, the Fenris albino explained as they walked, during the aftermath of the War of Three Suns, when the Vrillians were forced to watch their greatest enemies destroy themselves in their final battle. The victory they had dreamed of for generations became a hollow triumph, leaving them questioning the meaning of their entire existence. That existential despair took on a life of its own, becoming the plague that now consumes them. Ambassador Zexthara's shell patterns shifted to deep blues and purples, colors of profound sadness and recognition. It's true, she whispered. The plague appeared just months after the war ended. We thought the timing was coincidental, but there are no coincidences at the scale of civilizations, the wolf replied. To heal your people, the child must reach into the heart of their despair and replace it with hope. But hope cannot be forced or fabricated, it must be genuine, earned through real change and growth. They reached the grove, where crystalline trees hummed with energies that seemed to resonate with the fundamental frequencies of life itself. In the center of the grove was a pool of water that reflected not the sky above but the depths of space itself, showing swirling galaxies and distant stars. This is where you will work, the Fenris albino told Lily. The scrying pool shows not what is, but what could be. Through it, you can see the potential futures of any being or civilization, and, more importantly, you can guide them toward the future they most need to reach. Lily approached the pool cautiously, and, as she drew near, the cosmic water began to swirl faster, showing rapid glimpses of different possible realities. She saw the Vrillian homeworld restored to health, its people thriving and happy. But she also saw darker possibilities, worlds where the cure was worse than the disease, where forced healing led to spiritual death. How do I choose which future to make real? She asked. You don't choose, the Fenris albino replied. You offer. You present the possibility of healing and hope, and you let the people themselves choose whether to embrace it. True healing can only come from within, you can provide the catalyst, but the change must come from their own will to grow. The great wolf settled beside the pool, its cosmic eyes reflecting the swirling possibilities in the water. Now, look into the pool and see the true nature of the Vrillian people. See past their despair to the strength and beauty that lies beneath. Only when you truly understand what they can become will you be able to help them reach that potential. Lily knelt beside the scrying pool and placed her small hands on its crystalline edge. The moment her skin touched the water, the images in the pool exploded into clarity, showing her visions of Vrillian history, culture, and potential that took her breath away. And, in that moment, as she saw the true depth of what had been lost and what could be regained, Lily began to understand exactly what kind of miracle she was being asked to perform. The visions that flowed through the scrying pool overwhelmed Lily's senses with their intensity and beauty. She saw the Vrillian civilization at its height, crystal cities that sang with harmonious frequencies, their people creating art and music that could literally heal emotional wounds. She witnessed their philosophers developing ethical frameworks so sophisticated that war had become virtually impossible among their kind. But she also saw the gradual corruption that had led to their downfall. Generations of peace had made them complacent, and, when the external threat of the Corvani Empire emerged, they had been forced to compromise their principles to survive. The war had lasted 3 centuries, gradually transforming the Vrillians from a species of healers and artists into efficient killers.
Do you see? The Fenris albino asked, its voice gentle within her mind.
They did not become warriors by choice, but by necessity.
And, when that necessity ended with their enemy's self-destruction, they were left as strangers to themselves. Lily's hands trembled against the pool's edge as she witnessed the moment the plague first appeared.
It manifested not as a biological agent but as a crystalline growth that began in the centers of despair, the war memorials, the weapons factories, the places where Vrillian souls had been most damaged by the compromises they'd been forced to make. "It's not really a disease," she whispered, her voice filled with sudden understanding.
"It's their guilt made manifest.
They're literally dying of shame."
"Precisely. And no medical intervention can cure shame. It must be transformed into something else: understanding, forgiveness, renewed purpose."
The visions in the pool shifted, showing her possible futures. In some, the Vrillians simply accepted extinction, believing it to be their just punishment for abandoning their principles. In others, survivors rebuilt their civilization but remained forever haunted by their perceived failures. But, in a few bright timelines, she saw something different: Vrillians who had learned to integrate their warrior nature with their artistic souls, becoming something new and more powerful than they had ever been before. "That's the future they need to reach," Lily said, pointing to the brightest timeline. "Not a return to what they were, but an evolution into what they could become."
"But, how do you guide an entire species toward such a transformation?" Lily studied the swirling images more carefully, watching the subtle differences between the timelines.
In the successful futures, the change always began with a single moment of choice, a decision by individual Vrillians to stop seeing their warrior nature as a corruption and start seeing it as a necessary part of their growth. They need to forgive themselves, she realized.
But they can't do that while they're dying.
The plague is both the symptom and the cause. Their guilt made them sick, and being sick makes them feel more guilty. She pulled her hands back from the pool and turned to face the assembled crews. Dr. Chen was taking readings with her scanner, her face pale with concentration.
Admiral Kethvar stood protectively close, ready to intervene if something went wrong.
And Ambassador Zexthera watched with desperate hope, warring against resignation in her shell patterns.
"Ambassador," Lily called. "Can you come over here?"
Zexthera approached cautiously, her 6 arms trembling slightly.
"What do you need, young one?"
"I need you to tell me about the first Vrillian who died from the plague. Not the statistics or the medical reports, I need to know who they were as a person."
The ambassador's shell darkened with grief. Her name was Velnara.
She had been a combat medic during the final phase of the war, responsible for healing warriors so they could return to battle. When the war ended, she couldn't reconcile her role as a healer with the killing she had enabled. She spent her final days repeatedly apologizing to patients she had saved, begging their forgiveness for sending them back to fight.
Lily nodded slowly. "And the plague began with her?" "Within hours of her death, yes.
Her body crystallized, and the crystal began to spread to others who had similar conflicts." "Show me," Lily said, gesturing to the lily sat beside the scrying pool, her small legs dangling over the crystalline edge as she contemplated the most important decision of her existence. The cosmic waters still swirled with visions of possible futures, showing her glimpses of what could be if she chose to remain in the pocket dimension versus what might happen if she returned to mortal life. The assembled crews waited in respectful silence, understanding that they were witnessing a moment that would reshape the galaxy's future.
Dr.
Chen monitored her instruments nervously, noting that Lily's energy readings had stabilized but remained far above normal human parameters.
Admiral Kethvar stood ready to support whatever decision his niece made, though his protective instincts clearly favored her return to Earth.
Ambassador Zexthera had received another communication from her homeworld, and the news continued to be miraculous. The transformed Vrillians weren't just surviving their evolution, they were thriving, developing abilities that allowed them to heal others while maintaining their capacity for necessary action.
The untransformed population was also recovering, their plague-induced despair replaced by wonder at their species' resilience and adaptability.
"Take your time," the Fenris albino said gently. "This choice cannot be unmade, and it will affect not just your own existence but the fate of countless beings throughout the universe. I know, Lily replied, watching a particularly bright vision of herself as a cosmic healer, moving between star systems and guiding civilizations through their darkest moments. It's beautiful, what I could become. But it's also lonely? Dr. Chen suggested softly. Lily nodded. In all those visions of my cosmic future, I'm always alone. Powerful, helpful, making a real difference, but alone. Even with you as my sister, she said to the Fenris albino, we'd be isolated from the people we're helping. Too different, too powerful for them to relate to us as anything but forces of nature. That is the price of cosmic power, the great wolf acknowledged. To heal on such a scale, one must step outside the normal flow of mortal existence. Connection becomes difficult when you perceive reality from dimensions beyond normal comprehension. But what if there was another way? Lily asked, her blue eyes lighting up with the same determined creativity that had led her to solve the Vrillian crisis. What if instead of becoming a cosmic healer myself, I taught others how to heal the way we just did? The Fenris albino's star-filled eyes widened slightly. You would share the knowledge of species-wide healing with mortals? Not the power, Lily clarified. The understanding. The way we learn to see the Vrillian plague as incomplete transformation rather than simple disease, that insight doesn't require cosmic power. It just requires looking at problems differently. She stood up from the pool's edge and began pacing, her mind working through possibilities with the rapid intensity that had always marked her as unusual. Think about it. Every species faces moments when they need to evolve or die. Usually, they either fail to change and go extinct, or they change so drastically they lose their essential nature. But what if there were people trained to help them find the third option, transformation that preserves who they are while letting them become more? Dr. Chen's scientific mind immediately grasped the implications. You're talking about creating a new field of study. Evolutionary midwifery, for lack of a better term. Specialists who could help species navigate necessary changes without losing themselves. Exactly. Lily exclaimed, her excitement growing. And it wouldn't require cosmic power, just deep understanding of how consciousness and evolution interact, plus the wisdom to guide without controlling. Admiral Kefvar frowned thoughtfully. But how would you teach something like that? The understanding you gained here came from literally touching the minds of an entire species simultaneously. That's not exactly a reproducible teaching method. Actually, the Fenris albino interjected, it could be. The scrying pool doesn't just show visions, it can record experiences. If the child were willing to document her healing of the Vrillians in the pool's memory matrix, that knowledge could be accessed by others without requiring them to possess cosmic power themselves. Lily's face lit up with pure joy. So I could create a teaching tool. Something that would let people experience what it's like to see a species' potential for transformation without actually having to manipulate reality directly. But that would still mean staying here, Dr. Chen pointed out. Creating such a teaching tool would take time, and you'd need the Fenris albino's help to ensure it was safe. Lily looked between her adoptive family and the cosmic wolf, her expression thoughtful. What if we made it a collaborative project? I could spend part of my time here learning and creating the teaching tools, and part of my time in normal space helping establish the first schools for evolutionary healers. The Fenris albino was quiet for a long moment, its cosmic intelligence considering possibilities across multiple dimensions. That would be unprecedented. Never before has someone moved freely between cosmic awareness and mortal existence. The psychological strain could be enormous. But not impossible? Lily pressed. Not impossible. But it would require safeguards, careful monitoring, and, most importantly, the ability to partition your consciousness so that your cosmic experiences don't overwhelm your mortal identity. Dr. Chen stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her protective instincts. What kind of safeguards are we talking about? The child would need anchors in both realities, beings who could help her maintain her sense of self regardless of which form of existence she was currently experiencing. In the cosmic realm, I could serve that function. In mortal space, she would need someone equally committed to her well-being. Admiral Kefvar and Dr. Chen exchanged glances. We'd do it, they said simultaneously. Lily smiled at them with the pure affection of a child for her family. I was hoping you'd say that. But there's something else we need to consider. I won't stay 8 years old forever. What happens as I grow up?
How do I maintain this balance when I'm a teenager dealing with normal adolescent issues while also occasionally serving as a cosmic force for healing? An excellent question, the Fenris albino acknowledged. Perhaps the answer lies in accepting that your development will not follow normal human patterns.
You would grow into something new, not fully cosmic, not entirely mortal, but a bridge between the two states of being. Ambassador Zexthera, who had been listening to the discussion with fascination, suddenly spoke up. If I may, the transformed members of my species are facing a similar challenge. They are no longer purely Vrillian as they were, but they're also not something entirely different. They're learning to navigate multiple states of being simultaneously.
Lily turned to her with interest. What are they doing to manage it? They're creating support networks, groups of transformed individuals who help each other maintain balance between their different aspects.
Perhaps you could benefit from a similar approach, but with beings from different species who understand the challenge of existing between categories. The idea resonated with everyone present. A support network of beings who had transcended their original limitations while maintaining their essential selves could provide exactly the kind of guidance Lily would need.
There is wisdom in this approach, the Fenris albino agreed.
And it offers another possibility. As you train others in evolutionary healing, the most gifted among them might join your support network, eventually becoming bridges between mortal and cosmic awareness themselves. So instead of just creating a teaching tool, I'd be creating an entire new category of being, Lily mused. Evolutionary healers who can work with species facing transformation challenges.
Dr. Chen was already envisioning the implications. The applications would be enormous.
Not just for species-wide crises like the Vrillian Plague, but for smaller-scale transformations, civilizations transitioning from agricultural to technological phases, species adapting to environmental changes, even individuals struggling with personal evolution. And the beautiful part, Lily added, is that it wouldn't require anyone to give up their normal life entirely. We could train people to serve as evolutionary healers while still maintaining their connections to their home communities. The scrying pool began to swirl more rapidly, as if responding to the excitement of the discussion. New visions appeared in its depths, images of schools where beings from across the galaxy learned to facilitate transformation, of crises resolved through understanding rather than force, of species evolving in harmony with their essential natures rather than losing themselves in the process of change. I see a future where suffering born of transformation is greatly reduced, the Fenris albino observed, watching the visions with deep satisfaction. Where beings facing necessary change have skilled guides to help them navigate the process safely. Admiral Kefvar studied his niece's face, recognizing the expression of determined purpose he had learned to associate with her most significant decisions.
You've made up your mind, haven't you? Lily nodded firmly. I want to do this. I want to learn everything I can about cosmic healing and, then, teach others to do the same. But, I also want to stay connected to my human family and my normal life. I think the balance between cosmic and mortal perspectives will actually make me a better healer and teacher. Then, we shall begin immediately, the Fenris albino declared. But, first, you must understand that this path will change you in ways we cannot predict. You will face challenges that no being has ever encountered before. I know, Lily said simply. But, that's true of everyone who chooses to grow beyond what they were. The only difference is that I'll have help from the best teachers possible. The great wolf's cosmic eyes reflected what might have been amusement. Indeed. Very well, your training begins now. But, we shall structure it carefully, ensuring that you maintain your connections to mortal existence even as you develop cosmic abilities. What followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Lily spent the next several months moving between the pocket dimension and normal space, learning to partition her consciousness so that she could function effectively in both realms. The Fenris albino taught her to perceive reality from cosmic perspectives without becoming lost in them, while Admiral Kefvar and Dr. Chen helped her maintain her human identity and relationships. The breakthrough came when Lily successfully created her first teaching matrix, a crystalline structure that could share the experience of evolutionary healing without overwhelming the student's mortal consciousness. The first test subject was a Vrillian volunteer who had not undergone transformation but wanted to help others facing similar choices. The success was immediate and profound. The volunteer was able to experience Lily's perception of the plague as incomplete metamorphosis without being driven insane by cosmic awareness. More importantly, they were able to apply the insights to help other species facing transformation challenges. Within a year, the first Academy of Evolutionary Healing was established on a neutral world near the galactic core.
Students from dozens of species came to learn the new discipline, guided by teaching matrices that Lily created with the Fenris albino's help. The impact was immediate and far-reaching. Species that had been on the brink of extinction due to environmental changes learned to adapt without losing their cultural identity. Civilizations facing necessary technological transitions found ways to embrace progress without abandoning their values. Even individuals struggling with personal growth discovered new approaches to transformation that honored both their past and their potential future. But perhaps the most significant change was in Lily herself. As she matured, and her growth was indeed different from normal human development, she became something unprecedented in galactic history. She was simultaneously a cosmic being capable of reshaping reality and a mortal girl who still enjoyed simple pleasures like strawberry ice cream and adventure stories. Her support network grew to include transformed Vrillians, evolved Yovans who had learned to balance individual and collective consciousness, and eventually even a few humans who had been trained in evolutionary healing techniques. Together, they formed a new category of being individuals who existed comfortably in multiple states of existence simultaneously. Dr. Chen, documenting Lily's development for the Terran Federation's Xenological Archives, wrote, "Subject has successfully integrated cosmic awareness with mortal existence in a way that enhances rather than diminishes both aspects of her nature. She serves as proof that evolution need not require abandoning one's origins, but can instead represent an expansion of possibility that honors all aspects of being." Admiral Kethvar's reports were more personal but equally significant. "My niece remains recognizably herself despite capabilities that border on the divine. She still asks for bedtime stories, still worries about her friends, still gets excited about discovering new things. But now she can also heal species-wide trauma and teach others to do the same. She has become proof that great power need not corrupt, and that wisdom can grow without losing wonder." 5 years after the Vrillian crisis, Lily stood once again before the Galactic Council, but this time as the youngest being ever to address the Assembly as an expert rather than an observer. She was 13 years old by human standards, but her presence carried the authority of someone who had successfully bridged the gap between cosmic and mortal awareness. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying harmonics that spoke of depths beyond her apparent age, "I stand before you today to report that the age of catastrophic evolutionary failure is ending. Through the techniques we have developed at the Academy of Evolutionary Healing, species across the galaxy are learning to transform themselves in response to challenges without losing their essential nature." The chamber was filled with representatives from species that had been saved from extinction through evolutionary healing techniques. The Korandari, who had learned to adapt to their dying star by becoming beings of living light while maintaining their cultural traditions. The Theta Centaurians, who had successfully transitioned from aquatic to terrestrial existence when their homeworld's oceans receded. Dozens of other species who had faced seemingly impossible changes and emerged stronger rather than diminished. But, more importantly, Lily continued, "We have proven that the greatest transformations are not imposed from outside but guided from within. Every species, every individual, carries within themselves the potential to become more than they were while remaining true to what they are." She paused, looking around the vast chamber at the assembled delegates. "The universe is constantly changing, constantly challenging us to grow or perish. But we no longer have to face those challenges alone, and we no longer have to choose between evolution and extinction. We can choose transformation that honors both our past and our potential." In the human delegation section, Admiral Kethvar and Dr. Chen watched with pride as Lily concluded her presentation. She had kept her promise, she had learned to heal on a cosmic scale while remaining connected to her human family and her mortal existence. More than that, she had created something entirely new, a way for beings throughout the galaxy to navigate transformations safely and confidently. As the session ended and delegates began to discuss implementation of evolutionary healing techniques in their own territories, Lily made her way back to the human section. Despite everything she had become, she still moved like a 13-year-old girl eager to share exciting news with her family. "So," she said, settling into her seat beside Admiral Kethvar, "what did you think of my presentation?" "I think," he replied, putting an arm around her shoulders, "that you've given the galaxy something it didn't know it needed, hope for change without loss of identity." Dr. Chen smiled, checking her readings one last time. "Your energy levels are perfectly balanced between cosmic and mortal parameters. I think you've successfully created an entirely new category of existence." Lily grinned, looking exactly like the remarkable but essentially human child she had chosen to remain. "I think so too. And the best part is, we're just getting started." There are so many species out there who need help with transformation, so many individuals who are afraid to grow because they think growth means losing themselves. And, now they have a teacher who can show them otherwise, came a familiar voice in their minds. The Fenris albino's presence was always with Lily now, a constant cosmic companion who helped her maintain her balance between realities. We all do, Lily corrected silently. You, me, all the evolutionary healers we've trained, all the support networks we've created.
No one has to face transformation alone anymore.
As they prepared to leave the council chambers and return to the academy, where new students from across the galaxy were waiting to learn the art of guided transformation, Lily reflected on the choice she had made 5 years earlier. She had chosen to become something new while remaining who she was, to gain cosmic power while keeping her mortal connections. Looking back, she realized it wasn't really a choice between two different paths. It was a choice to prove that such choices were false dichotomies, that growth and preservation, power and humility, cosmic awareness and mortal love could all coexist in the same being. She had chosen to become a bridge, and, in doing so, she had shown the entire galaxy that bridges were possible. The universe was still full of challenges, still constantly demanding growth and adaptation from every being within it. But, now, for the first time in galactic history, transformation had become a collaborative art rather than a terrifying necessity. Species could evolve while remaining themselves, individuals could grow while honoring their origins, and the cosmos itself had become a more hopeful place. And it had all started with an 8-year-old human girl who had been brave enough to face an impossible choice and wise enough to refuse to accept that the choice was truly impossible. In the end, that might have been the most human thing of all, the refusal to accept that love and power, wisdom and wonder, growth and preservation were mutually exclusive. Lily had proven that the greatest transformations didn't require abandoning what made you who you were. They required becoming more than you ever thought possible while never forgetting where you came from. The galaxy was learning that lesson one species at a time, one individual at a time, one moment of guided transformation at a time. And, at the center of it all was a young woman who remained, in the most important ways, exactly the same 8-year-old girl who had offered to help strangers simply because it was the right thing to do. Some things, Lily had learned, were too important to evolve beyond.
Love was one of them.